Si je sais, j'habite au Canada. Tosh, 어르신 보여서 요셉 원이시구나. servo. 그나노즘 요셉 Si je sais, j'habite au Canada.
So while childlike is the key to fluency, very simple. I'm still learning it myself because a lot of times images go back and all that stuff, all that good stuff, childhood stuff, inner child trauma that I didn't have. I don't remember my childhood, to be honest. I remember several things like going places, like I went to it was called like Memorial Park. This was back when I was like in the Philippines. I was born there. So, and I was like this kid, and I remember just being there, but I remember seeing this picture that my dad took. Apparently I was like this barbecued sort of banana, it's like plantain sort of thing, and I remember running towards my mom, I think, and I was like, yay, look what I got. Yeah, for the most part I don't remember. All I remember is a feeling of uncertainty, like my parents weren't there, my parents were there, and it was just, I'm still processing everything right now, just because it's a healing thing, right? Forgiveness isn't something you happens overnight and be like done just like that, right? So child wise, all I know is that when it comes to childlikeness, there's a lot of still a lot of things that I need to address. When I say address, I mean like inner child healing. But what I do know is that when it comes to languages, there's a lot of it is detached to self-worth. That's true. I will admit that. That's for sure. Meaning that not as much now, but when it comes to it, a lot of it has to do with invalidation and validation, and being seen and not seen. I don't want to be seen because it's like people will just make fun of me, people don't listen to me. That's a big one. Even as I make this video, I find that it's like there are those who just like either they don't know what I'm talking about, and if they don't know what I'm talking about, they don't ask why. So then also tied into communication, right? And so this is kind of like this snowball effects of things that are just like I could list a bunch of things. Like I know that I've been aware of this for a long time, that I do tend to get to the negative. When I say negative, as in like it's kind of automatic. I mean, for those who do astrology, I have Mercury in Scorpio and also conjunct to Uranus, blah 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 blah. The point is that it heads into that direction, and it's just like, why? But at the same time, I keep wondering, it's like, why? Yeah, why is that? Why do I go into that direction? It's because a lot of it is trauma, a lot of it is self-worth stuff, a lot of it is not being heard, a lot of it is, it is really self-worth related. What I can say about when it comes to languages, I remember the first time, I just want to share with you this story. I remember the first time I came across a third language, in my case, was when, this was back in, I was in some store, I forgot what it was, and I saw this book, and it had this, like the kana. For those who know Japanese stuff, their writing system, they have the kana and then there's the kanji. So I had this book, and it showed like mnemonics, and I thought, oh, this is cute, this will help me. I was just kind of curious, because for me, it was like an art form. All these symbols, like, what's this? That's how, so I tend to remember things visually and through directly through experience, but visually. So I had that, and then that was like, it was not until like about a few years later where I took Japanese class for the first time. This was back in junior high, or we call it just high school, where I'm from. And it was like, cool, I'm finally getting into it. But before I even got into that, I had friends that were from Hong Kong. Back then, back in the 90s, it was just Hong Kong. It was separate. It's not part of China. So I had friends who spoke Cantonese. I was like, okay, cool. Then I realized later that my dad took classes in Cantonese. So I was looking at it. And I was just kind of curious, the curiosity was there. But then eventually kind of died out because even the Japanese stuff kind of died out too. And then I started noticing a pattern. The languages that I was okay, and then I got into. Sorry, I want to backtrack a little bit. Then I met Korean friends. I had Korean friends, and that I never took Korean. I never with that I never took classes in. I was with friends, and I just hung out with them, and it was just like constant hanging out. Just exposed to their music, and all that stuff. I never took classes because there wasn't any classes available, right? So, and I remember like just enjoying and having, like just being with friends that was kind of like the energy that I vibe with. I still do that. And then I remember, like I was friends with them for like years, and this is throughout high school, right? But it wasn't necessarily like I was exposed to their languages. Even my friends from Hong Kong, even my friends from Taiwan, because we all just spoke English, or rather, they tried to speak English, and so it was just most of it was like English. But when it came to their own languages, it wasn't. It was hardly translated. So I really picked up a lot of stuff. Like for example, like I can't think of one right now because I'm not trying to prove anything right now. I don't want to prove anything. I'm just trying to say that it's like my experience was like, when we were with friends, I picked up a lot of stuff from them, but it wasn't full exposure, so to speak. Like immersion is what people sometimes say. And then after high school, I remember I took Spanish, and then I took German, and then a bunch of things that sparked my interest. And then at university, this was after college. By the way, in Canada, university and college are different things. So I went from college to university. In university, I took more languages. I took more German, I took Hungarian, I took Norwegian, and I took Danish later. And then after all that, though, I started realizing there was this pattern. I realized it's like, the only reason I would ever even remotely visually remember something is because I just remember it. But it doesn't mean that I was fluent in any of them. It wasn't until after, what was it, with 2010, when I started to I just said, stop, no more wasting time, no more all of this overthinking things. I started realizing, it's just like, why am I not, why I don't feel good about this one. I don't feel good about my own fluency. Like, I forget what other people thought. It was just more like, I just don't feel good in it. I feel like I'm thinking what I'm saying. I have to process what I'm saying. It's not coming out automatically. A lot of times people will say like, well, why don't you just speak and then not think and all that stuff? Well, yeah, easier said than done. But at the same time, even if you just spoke and you're just broken, it's not about the speaking or the listening either. It's about what feels natural, what comes out naturally, the processing of the language. Just to break this down, because as I doing this, I sense the process of what's happening right here in the body, all over in the brain, as I do this, as I'm saying this. And what I'm about to say is, I'll give you an example. Let's say in German. I'm not doing this to prove anything at all. I'm just saying this like, it's, there are still times where I'm still thinking about it. Okay. Also, zum Beispiel, wenn ich auf Deutsch rede, muss ich aber, see, right there, there's a thought process that happens. So there's still development that needs to happen, right? And I'm not going to force anything that comes out. Okay? If it doesn't come out, doesn't come out, right? Alles gut. Okay? So you'll notice that there's just sort of this bit of, I wouldn't say code switching thing happening, but this is where I believe that there's tied to also probably code switching, but that's for another time. But code switching is linked to this, and why is people code switch is because the fluency wasn't fully developed in one language and in the other as well. This is why code switching happens. And I'm pretty sure people are going to be like, oh, I don't know, where's your backup? Where's your science? I don't care. I don't care. This is what I do. This is what I do. This is what I know. Okay. And growing up in a Filipino background, like whatever that is, I don't think I ever also, like I kind of did. Like I still have to think about it. Now, I don't know what it is, but for me personally, I feel like this strong sense that if I can acquire as much as I have so far, and I'm not talking about content either, I'm talking about this, it's almost like, I got this, what do you call this? This image from when I took this one class. It was like about I forget what it was called. Learning about learning or something like that. And they talked about the short-term memory to the long-term memory. In other words, the conscious part of the brain to the long-term back here, right? They talked about how this is short-term memory. It's kind of like the analogy of like this one small area of like land or whatever. Like it could be like the area of like a house, right? But the long-term memory is like this vast forest, like acres and acres and acres and acres and acres. Like it's almost like seems endless, like this vast ocean of forests of trees, and it's just like it's in there. That's the subconscious. But we tend to think of that as like the amount. What I see is that my teacher back then, my professor, said that it had something to do with the link between the short-term memory, or rather the younger version, the younger parts of the brain, connecting that with the subconscious. It will not go to the conscious unless the road is paved. So it's almost like the house, it's here, the short-term memory, and the long-term memory is up there, right? In other words, where fluency is, where understanding is, where everything is pretty much set and pretty much permanent, and then so on and so forth. Fluency is also part of that. But fluency, I feel, is tied more to that road toward that forest. It's that road that needs to be paved. Sometimes it's not clear enough. So that's what I mean. Okay? So, for example, if I were to force something in German, I can feel it right away. Right? Like I'm translating in my head too. I'm translating in my head from English to German if I have to force it. It doesn't come out naturally. Pero, see, right there's a pause. Okay? Though there is fluency when I understand Filipino or Tagalog. I understand it. I understand what's going on. There's also fluency there, but it's only going in one direction. It needs to be paved to go in both directions, unlike it is in English, right? So, I don't know yet. To be honest with you, all I know is that when it comes to fluency, childlikeness is the key. And why is that? Because the real process of childlikeness is not even that it's a process. Okay, it's not unconscious. It's conscious. But when I say conscious, I mean different from the whole like conscious part of the brain, subconscious. I mean it is just present. Being childlike means you're just present. You're surrendering to the moment. You're free. You're really in the moment. And there's just really this deep understanding of what that is, that why, without asking it. Curiosity isn't because you're questioning what's there. Curiosity is more like, oh, okay. It's that energy of curiosity. It's that energy of just being here and satisfied, not even satisfied, literally like in complete gratitude, because we don't understand it because a lot of us have lost it. And for me, I've been kind of labeled as kind of many things, like a show off, immature, extreme, and all that stuff. But really, where it stems from is just a desire to be this childlike person. Yes, this child, because we were born children and we will die as children. When you release all that stuff when you die, all that perception you have as this adult, as this perfect so-called being, perfectionist, this all that ego stuff right there, it all goes away. What's left is the actual essence. So how does that tie into fluency? Well, think about it. What is fluency? It's flow, right? Flow requires no thinking. So if we have no thinking, we have no brain, meaning we have no conceptualization of this brain that limits us and tries to stop the flow and tries to constrict and flow of everything else that is natural. That is, when I say natural, I mean everything that is, period. You'll see it again and again. There's several videos, there's several people who are posting on this. It's all basically that. It's just being. Right? And I'm pushing this right there. If you feel the energy right there, and I'm doing it because I know for sure, I just know that it's the right thing. When I say right, I don't mean like right versus wrong. I mean because I know that's what's natural for all of us. All of us. Even if you go back to the whole thing with language acquisition, what Stephen Krashen says. He says that, I'll link the video to one of his webinars actually. I'm actually going to read it here. What did he say here? Okay. He said, okay, so I'm going to quote several things here. And I'm going to post the link below this one, the actual, I think he was doing like some sort of like seminar, I forgot what it was. Anyways, he says, nearly every day the action is, acquisition gives us fluency and accuracy. Okay, we got that. We all acquire language the same way. That's what he said. There are some things that we all do the same. Language acquisition is the same. So for example, the way I understood that, and that totally made sense to me, was that whole like how we acquire language is not acquisition itself. How is the how. That's our developed personality. When we grow, as we get older, as we develop our personalities, that's what it is. How we do it, that's what we do. That's just a layer over the actual acquisitional process. He also said there are some things that we do. I read that one. The idea of a language lesson in public makes you at least a little bit nervous. So he says we're doing something fundamentally wrong, unnatural the way we teach language. Okay. And then the last quote that I got here was, we acquire language in one way and only one way, when we understand it. In other words, when the message is clear through the how. That's what I said here. When I say, the way I'm seeing this is that we think of language acquisition as this holding, like this one thing, as if it's like bloop bloop and that's it, and that's the label, and this is language acquisition and all that stuff. In my experience, it goes beyond that, because like I'm still learning it. That's the whole process. I'm not here to try to say like I know exactly how to do it. I'm just saying, you know, it's linked. I know this because it's linked. Like, I mean, just because I haven't gotten to that certain point, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. I mean, I know it sounds like it's kind of makes you question like where's his credibility on that stuff. Well, I don't need you to believe me. I need you to, what I would like is for people to see that when it comes to being childlike, it's really just being in the moment. Surrender to the moment. So you have fears, okay? Surrender to the fear. Surrender to the unknown. And I'm saying this because I'm still learning this myself. And you know, I was having this. I've had training before. Like, a long story short, basically, I've had these coaches that have said that, you know, sometimes you don't want someone who's like already perfect, right? You want someone who's in the same boat as you are. So All I know is that when it comes to languages, there's a certain level of fluency that we still can acquire, right? Like, I could be saying this because it's like, you know, I mean, part of this video is also about sharing with you that when it comes to my experience, people have always said, like, some people have said, or many people have said, it's like, oh, you're good at this, you're good at that, and there's like, maybe it's gotten to me, to be honest. But it's, I know this is worth more than that. It's like when it comes to language acquisition, it's, I don't know. Yeah. To be honest with you, the best answer I can give you right now is I don't know. All I can do is share with you my experiences. So these days I've been trying to, I guess you can say trying to, I've been exposing myself to like Slovak. And I think one of the reasons why I don't have what you call like this belief that, the fluency that a person has to have is like at a certain level or something like that. Like that's how we quantify fluency. I don't believe that. And that's the reason I don't believe that is because I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. Take it as it is. I just don't believe that. I don't know how to put it in words for you to really understand and grasp, because all I know is that any of the other stuff that's been done before that I've done, where I would like take classes, or even if I didn't take classes, I would have these books and I would actually just go through it and then learn the vocabulary, and then nothing would work, and then I would expose myself, but that also didn't work. And I'm tying this to what the research has been showing when it comes to like, all this stuff. The point of this whole thing is not at all about language acquisition, actually. It's really about that being present thing, that energy. I don't know how else to word it. I don't know how else to put it so that you can grasp it, so that you yourself feel like, oh, wow, what's the solution? That's the whole point. There is no solution. Be present. There is no end game. Be present. If you focus on the journey, that'll help you more than the destination. So if you focus, I was going to try to say, if you focus on the destination, that's really, you're going to forget the journey. And then what's going to happen? You hear it time and time again. But really the best experience is experience. And when I say experience, I don't mean like speaking right off the bat, like on day one. You let it happen naturally. You let it happen naturally. You let it happen naturally. I guess the best way I could describe, the best way I could put this in words is that, see, even when I speak English, sometimes like I still think about it, and it's become my first language. So there's like a split, but I can feel it without a doubt that there's a split. There's this sort of like this chaotic sort of, I wouldn't say chaotic, but kind of like this sort of, I don't know what's happening here. And that's the other thing. When it comes to these kind of things, sometimes people will start to get bored because of the way they talk, and that's because we're not present. When we're hearing someone talk in a certain way and we're already judging it, we're not present. We miss a lot of vital information because we're not present. Things lose quality because we're not present. Right? So this, aside from the fact that it is something that frustrates me, take it or leave it, people will disagree. For me, I know that it's, even though I'm frustrated about it, it's true for me. And I'm saying it for me, not because I want you to like me, or I want you to not like me, or I don't care. It's nothing to do with that. It's just like, that's what it is. I do know that acquisition is a natural thing. Not the how, not the why, but because it is natural. So why do we not do it? Why are still a lot of companies doing it? Why are still a lot of companies promoting this outdated, backwards sort of way? Speaking on the very first day, and then going to writing, and then going to reading, and then last comes the listening. I mean that's just the process of the whole structure. That's how they structured it. But there really isn't a separation between all four. In fact, there isn't a separation between input and output. It's a flow. But if you look at the analogy of the bottle, okay, right there, pretend this is your, but I don't like the concept, even the analogy of the bottle, because the bottle has its limits. Energy has no limits. Energy is energy. When we constrain it, when we put a constraint in it, we put it in this fucking bottle, what happens is it just stays in the bottle, right? And then what happens? It just sits there. And what happens? Give it over time. Give it 10,000 years. What happens to this water? It becomes toxic because it starts to absorb. It was already starting to, it had been absorbing the plastic itself. So anyways, I'm expressing my frustration because that's how I feel. I feel very limited in terms of the experience that I have. But that's not going to stop me from really enjoying what I'm doing. And I still do languages because I still enjoy it. Right? I feel like I have to prove something here in this video, but it's like, I'm not going to. I kind of already did with the German stuff. It's not fun. It's not fun if I'm having to force what I'm, it's still not there. Doesn't mean I don't understand it. Doesn't mean there's no fluency in the listening part, the input part. Fluency still exists there. It does. But do I have to prove it to you? No. Only you yourself know as individuals. Know if you understand something. Not only understand the definition of the word, which is not really the point. You just understand it. You're like, okay, right? It's a connection between everything and everything and everything. The body language, facial expression, intonation, pronunciation, all that stuff with the meaning behind it. There's a subconscious, there's a intuitive and instinctive understanding of what's happening. This is why when we say understand, it's not just knowing, but it goes beyond, deeper than understanding. I can't really put it in words anymore. And to be honest with you, this is why I'm just making this video, because it's being childlike is a thing for me, at least. And yeah, I don't know how to put it. I guess this ended up being like a vulnerability video. I don't know. So, really, childlikeness is the key to fluency, and I just know it. That's all I know. To summarize this whole thing, it's just I just know it is. Because the proof has already been in front of me a lot of times. I've seen it. Children are very good at languages because they're good at languages because they're children, because they're not deluded by the egoic conditionings of life. That's called human condition thing, right? The things that we perfect adults want, right? So take it or leave it. This is what it is. It's childlikeness is the key to fluency. So I challenge people to learn through this whole process, through their own experiences, and be childlike, and just have fun in the process. There are many ways to go about it. One way would be to whatever you're doing is not the point. Whatever you're doing has to be, make sure it's fun. As Stephen Krashen, I'm going to use his words. He says, fun, easy, compelling. When he says compelling, I really means, for me, I go beyond that. I say interactive. if you feel what the source you're getting, if you're in a mode, if you're in like the midst of like, if you're in a situation where it's just you feel like you're stuck and you're just at home or you can't travel, all that stuff, and all you have are online sources, video chats, or whatever you have, as long as it's interactive, I think that's really what it's going to be the best. If if you really feel called to it and you go into it further, like you look for native speakers and insist on the acquisition itself. They shouldn't be translating in front of you every single fucking word, okay? To me, I'm frustrated with that. It's like, they translate, it's like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work, 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 that doesn't work. Why? Because your previous language that you've already acquired is something that you're subconsciously familiar with. Familiarity is tied to the subconscious area of the brain, at the very least. And so, I don't want to sound condescending here. I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just saying it's frustrating because it's like, wow. So really like allow yourself to be in that mode of like, don't say yes to the translations. I would say translation is one of the most damaging things. When I say damaging, I'm not trying to be negative about it. It's really about, because it's very limiting. What it does is like, when you translate something, what happens is you understand a concept not in your target language, but in the language that you're already familiar with, so subconsciously. There's a deeper understanding to that concept, especially if it's abstract. If it's concrete, okay. But still, I really wouldn't recommend that. Why? Because once you start translating, you also get into this mode, this habit of like doing it the same way again and again and again and again. Because we're habitual creatures, right? So when we translate, we get used to that. We want to get into a different habit, right? Repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is insanity, right? So do it differently. Stop translating. Ask a native speaker, don't translate in front of me. Other things, make sure it's interactive. Make sure you're just having fun. Like, it shouldn't be robotic. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's not. Just be natural. And people wonder sometimes, like, I don't know how to be natural. Go into nature. Observe. What does nature do? What does nature do? Like, are they analyzing things? Does the tree analyze things? Do the birds act? No, it's instinctive. Instinct is directly tied to the subconscious part of the brain. Even if you don't believe in the research, even if you do research on it, even if you look at the research, whether you believe it or not, when you find somebody, go with your own experience and continuously do that on and continuously do that. When I say continuously, I don't mean like the same, mundane, boring things. I mean, go for the experience and say, okay, observe. That's what being childlike is also. Observe. The speaking will happen naturally. When I say naturally, I mean like it will happen naturally. Your body will tell you when you're ready to do that. But the more interactive it is, when I say interactive, I mean full-on interactive. Like you're really enjoying the moment. I'm not saying force the interaction. I'm not saying force the fun. You cannot force that fun. If you're forcing the fun, then you're not having fun. No. Right? And I think that's what we need to get back into as humans. We need to go back into enjoying being in communities, really interacting, not rushing things as if it's like we're trying to fulfill, we're trying to fill a gap that was missing in our lives through overeating, overconsumption, overbuying things, all those things. It's too much. There's nothing wrong with things. There's nothing wrong with living this life. There's nothing wrong with this form. It's not about right or wrong. This isn't about right or wrong. This is about, if you really want fluency, the key is childlikeness. The key is to have fun. The key is to make it comfortable and easy. Make it light and enjoyable. Right? And interactive. Interactive doesn't necessarily mean like you're high on drugs and shooting it up and like, you know, dancing all the time and, you know, going crazy. Interactive can just be means like you feel a connection. Really, what it is. It's connection. Right? So for those who are watching and feel like I didn't structure all this stuff, I felt like I just needed to express this more and not necessarily structure it. Go back to the video if you want to. But the point is it's really about trusting your inner child. What does it want? Go meditate on it too. Do an inner child work. Look up Teal Swan stuff. Look up anything on inner child healing. Go back into that one. That'll get back to your inner child. Go into nature. Walk out there. Right? Even if it's just once a week, that's fine. As long as you're doing something. Well, it's not really about the doing either, but it's really about just being present. Right? So it all comes back to that. So if you watch this far, that means you're getting something from what I'm saying here. Whether you really learn from this or not is up to you, because it needs to be experienced rather than just like, here's a video, I think I understand because I watched a video. No, it has to be experienced. So again, the experience that I said is not about speaking right off the bat. You don't speak right off the bat. You force it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're just going to go, right? So you don't want that. You want it to be fluent. And when I say you want, I mean we're talking like your connection to your whole flow with universe, so consciousness and essence and all that stuff. It sounds esoteric, I know, but the point is you feel connected. You feel connected through everything that you do. Maybe not everything, but it starts with little things, right? Connect with the moment, right? So I'm going to list down some of the tips that I've given before. I don't want to make it like a super long list, but I'm actually going to state it here. Okay. So really, it's, you know, being childlike is allowing yourself to be creative, allowing, forgiving, trusting, intuitive, instinctive, adventurous, curious, present. That's the most important one. Patient, naturally and organically patient. Okay. So when what happens when that's the case, everything just flows, right? Because language is for what? What is really language for? Communication, right? So what is communication? It's an expression, it's impression, it's to, fro, it's flow, right? That's what communication is. If you look at communication, roads, it's about communication. If there's only one way road, what happens? Isn't it frustrating? It's like, it only goes this way. And there's nothing. So imagine if all the roads were one-way roads, one-way streets. That doesn't make sense. Okay? Okay. So, fun, easy, compelling. That's what Stephen Krashen says. Lot of input, and then natural output will come out. Okay? Go with the experience, make it interactive, expose yourself. Okay. When we force speed, for example, I'll give you another analogy. When we force speed, for example, 0 to 1,000 kilometers per hour in a second, like, what happens? Isn't that explosion? Isn't that combustion? So what happens there? Right? Things happen quickly. Great. Okay, we get grammar right away. We get the information right away. We get the translated word right away. We get the everything right away. Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, instant gratification. Okay, cool. And what is that energy? It's impatience. It is impatience, just like some of the energy I've been kind of projecting on today. So instead of natural acceleration, right? We don't want forced acceleration. We want natural acceleration. Because forced acceleration is not speed, right? It's combustion. Kaboom! Right? And what do you do when an explosion happens? It's destructive. It's just a burst of energy, kaboom, and it's gone. That's exactly what happens with all grammar stuff, all translation stuff. Correction is also part of that, because you just get the answer. It's like cheating on an exam. Okay? So I even saw this one website. It's called, apparently conscious only rules about 5 to 10% of our communication, I think, something like that. I think it's about communication. But basically the conscious rules about 5 to 10% of our process, our mental process. The subconscious is 90 to 95%. 90 to 95%. I'll repeat, 90 to 95%. Okay, so what does that say? Now, regardless of the research, or the or no research, you can speak for yourself and you'll know what will feel natural and what will not feel natural. If it feels natural, it will feel like, I can breathe. If it's not, you'll feel a tension in the body. Somewhere in the body, doesn't matter where it is, somewhere in the body you will feel tension. If it doesn't feel natural, if it doesn't feel interactive, if it's not childlike, if it's not present, it will not feel, it won't. It just won't. Okay. So several things that I've done here that I've showed people. So one of the tricks I've done is you can do this as a kind of a list. I personally don't care which one you do first. The key is really interaction. But if you really want a list, one of the things that I've done is I allow for sounds to play in the background. I don't actively listen to it. It's passive listening. It could be radio, it could be podcasts, it could be videos, but videos, but played in the background. Not when you are doing something that requires thinking. Okay? So let the sounds come to you. It's like music, right? Right? You don't analyze every single note when you're doing that. Unless you do, then that means you're overthinking things. Okay? 2, look for things that have a lot of context. Again, interactive. The more interactive it is, like for example, cooking shows. When you're watching a cooking show, there's a part of you that wants to cook, right? Follow that. Follow that drive. Follow that inspiration. Like, I want to try that recipe. So you watch the video and do it, and pause it if you need to. Like, oh, what was that? Okay. Don't translate the video. Don't translate the images on what you see or words that you see. If you have to look up the meaning, what I would suggest is don't translate it. See the word and see whatever your target language is. You know the writing system it's at, right? Look up that word. See if you can type it in. But see what happens right there. What happens when you try to do that? It blocks you. It takes away from the fun and the flow. Because now you're looking up the word, or the meaning of the word. You're looking up what is that, or even if it's not translated, you're looking up the definition of the word in your target language, or you're looking up the picture and you're like, oh. So the best way is, if you want to do cooking, if you want to do a specific recipe, I would say, because cooking videos or cooking shows or whatever, instructional videos, if it's interactive, you'll know if it's interactive because they're a different person talking. Not those videos that are like, here the ingredients, and then you like, there's nothing. They just give you the ingredients. Those are for like people who are these so-called native speakers, right? They already got that. What I'm saying is a video that gets you, it's interactive. It's like they're really interacting with you. Like you're getting this support. You'll know when it's interactive. You'll know it inside. You know how to listen to that. So if you want to, before the video even, in your target language, this is where translation actually fits and actually works to your advantage. Look up the recipe you're looking for, just the one thing. Let's say, I don't know, spaghetti, whatever. And look at the word spaghetti and then see if you can get that in the target language. Most likely it's going to be spaghetti because it's a barred word, right? And you look up that on YouTube, whatever it is, if you're watching a video, which is because videos are more interactive, but interactive videos are more interactive. Okay, type in that name in your target language. Could be whatever writing system they're using, whatever your target language is, right? And then type it in, and then whatever feels. Trust your senses, trust your intuition. See what feels like it's going to be a good video. Test it out. It's interactive if you know the person is actually like talking to you, like as if they're like, okay, so this is you'll know. One of the one of the better videos that I've seen are for children. Children's videos, kids videos, like on cooking. That's one of the best ones I find so far, because they're actually just enjoying it. They're just there, like, and you'll see them hold it up. This is the egg. You'll know that they're talking about an egg. You'll know they're talking about flour. You'll know they're talking about cups. You're talking about this. Da, 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 da. You get the point. The point is not about perfection. Let perfection go. That's another one. So that's interactive. Another way is through workout videos. Workout videos, you don't necessarily need to translate something unless you do something like you translate the name of the title. You translate, you go like this. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for, like sit-up, push-ups, whatever. Or if you're in a specific sport, you look at this up. You look at videos. Just scan through it. Just scan through it. Look at the videos. You'll see what will feel kind of like. Be curious about it. Use your curiosity and be like, okay, oh, this looks interesting. Click on it, and then be like, okay, this is the video. And if it's partially interactive, great. If it's not, that's fine too. At least you allowed your curiosity to go through, to go like, okay, I got this. And then watch, and just do the workout. Just follow it as it is. Watch what they're doing. You don't need to know exactly, oh, this is the word for push-up, or this is the word. No, you don't need to do that. You'll see it. Because why? Because you're doing it anyways. Now, working out may not necessarily be fun. But yeah, try also if you're a musician, if you want to do music, do that. Look up like something in their target language, how they play music, and just make sure it's interactive. They're not yapping about like in this video. They're not yapping about. They're actually showing you what's happening. This is what's happening. Let's say if it's guitar, they show you this is how it, and just kind of just intuit it, right? Intuit it. So the key here is not about using. It's not about the language itself. It's about using the language as if it's already part of you, and you're just wanting to learn an actual thing, something else, something that's different, an actual learning thing, like how to play an instrument, how to cook, the kind of workout you do, where to go. As long as it's interactive, means that there's a lot of visual aids, a lot of support. There's a lot of like interaction with the viewers, right, between the poster and the video, and the viewers. Okay. So again, interactive. If you find a native speaker, you need to do the same thing, right? No translation. This is where you say no to. This is where you have the limits. Okay. No translation, no correction, no grammar. 3 things. No correction, no translation, no grammar. No corrections, no translation, no grammar. By now you should probably already starting to kind of get, hopefully at least kind of get why that doesn't work. Okay. Again, this isn't about right or wrong. This is just about what is more effective. Because when we break things down, when we pause things, always break things down, we get the answer right away. Great. Okay, and then what? It's like that combustion thing that happens all over again. Kaboom! Okay, just get it. Okay, let's cheat on the exam. There's a reason for cheating too. There's a purpose for cheating, but this isn't one of them, right? Taking the shortcut isn't always the best road to take. Okay? Because when you take the shortcut, this is why it's called short-term memory right here. That's the shortcut. You just get the answer and then that's it. How much more can it make more sense for, so anyways, again, part of this whole video is frustrations as well, because I see this happening still all the time. One last thing I wanted to do is I'll list down the list I have here, but or I can connect you to a different video as well. Either one, we'll see what happens. The other thing is, one last thing is that when it comes to all this stuff, I know that I've spoken a lot out of frustration, is that sometimes I wouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times we take communication for granted. We think that communication is just blurting out what we want to say without any consequences or without any, it won't hurt the person. You can just say like, oh, he's a gypsy. Oh, it's a midget. Or it's like, oh, such a fag. He's such a nigger. You get offended by those words, right? Exactly. But they're not just words. That's the whole point. it's not just words. And why is it not just words? Because we grew up associating those words with a certain meaning. Now, how we react to it is one thing. If we're healing, if we're growing, and we see those words, and pardon all that stuff that I said earlier, but the point is, it is triggering, right? That's one thing to work on it and work on your triggers. It's another thing to be the, I guess, the person who is saying those words. You want to be conscious and aware of those words. Now, this is about the different type of consciousness, different from like this whole conscious area. But basically, there's a connection. We know that we're saying those words, but if we're not conscious about those words. So same thing with the actions we take towards language acquisition. But that's where the subconscious, where we think it's something automatic, something that is unconscious, even though sometimes this is the gift of the unconscious part of the brain, or the subconscious also. That because it's automatic, it's also tied to fluency, because fluency is automatic. But when it comes to other things that we need to be aware of, things that we need to bring to our attention, things that we need to, not even just knowing it, it's like being conscious of like every action, every action eventually that we take, the things that we say, how we express it, how we, I realize, I sense in my body that it's like I have this emotion. Okay, I have these thoughts. Okay, I'm aware of that. That's the gift of the conscious. But as humans, for the most part of human history, we got it backwards. Right? We think that being the consciousness isn't something we should honor and hone and nurture. Same thing with the subconscious. We nurtured it in a different way. It's like all that stuff, the unconscious behavior from the past, right? And that's not going to work now. It's not going to work anymore. So both have a purpose. The conscious and the subconscious, and the conscious and the unconscious, and even the superconscious, right? So the whole point is that it's shifting. And this is one of the things that I find is going to need to shift as well. How we communicate is both through the conscious and the subconscious. We're talking in this video about fluency. Fluency is a subconscious part of the brain. The subconscious thing. So these are the things. So I'll list down the link of what I said before, the link to Stephen Krashen's video or something like that, and then the quotes that I said, and also the tips that I put in here. So, or send the link to the video that I made about the tips where I put it, because I have a long list and it's really long. So for some people, this video is already long, and second, the tips that that I might give based on my list is already also going to be additionally long. Some people don't have that time, but either way, right? So I hope this helps. I hope this was somehow enlightening. I'll link the other video also to this video after this, and then I think that's it for now. Okay, thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you have any comments, please connect. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.